It's time for me to make another sign for one of the members of my motorcycle family. For this project I'm using scraps from pallets. The bad part about pallet wood is sometimes the condition of the wood is pretty poor. This piece of wood right here has a pretty serious bow in it. And because these are not too long, I can fix this at the table saw. I'll start by running one side through the table saw and clean it up. Once I've got a nice straight edge on this piece, I can flip it around, move the fence over, and run the other side. Then I'll have two nice straight parallel sides. I cleaned up both edges of all of these boards at the table saw. Now it's time to joint them together. I'm going to use biscuits and a biscuit jointer. With the clamps in place, it's time for the glue up. After adding the glue, I flip these over because I want the face side down so it sits flush against the pipes on the pipe clamps. Then I'll squeeze everything together and throw some weight on here. This is the emblem I started with. I enlarged it 400% at a photocopier. I applied the spray adhesive to both the paper and the wood. I let it sit for a few minutes, then I come back and put the emblem on the boards. I use a 1/4-inch straight bit to remove the material. I've got the video moving along at a pretty good clip here, but in actuality, I'm moving pretty slow here through this router process. I'm working with natural wood. This happens to be pine, and I'm really trying to keep a firm grip on that router, pay attention to the grain and what it's doing to the router. Occasionally it'll grab that router bit and try and pull it in one direction, so you want to have a pretty good handhold on this, and just take your time. I knew from the beginning of this project that I was going to use the torch and burn this wood as part of the finish. Everything was going great. I was really liking the effect that it was having on this pine. And then I ran into a problem. There was an area that was full of pitch or sap, and it was seeping out of the wood, catching on fire. I ended up putting a lot more burn into this wood than I originally wanted. The side effect of all that heat was it actually cupped the boards, so now I had a new problem to deal with. I figured the heat from the excess burning on the front side dried those fibers out and caused them to cup. So I decided to get the heat gun out and see if I could reverse that process a little bit. The wood actually got pretty warm to the touch, so I just got it as hot as I could, and then I used some weights to hold it in place while it cooled down. The process wasn't perfect, but it did make a noticeable improvement. I only had 2 shades of green on hand. This is the one I chose. This happens to be a craft paint. I ended up putting about 3 or 4 coats of this green paint on before I got the coverage that I wanted. Every time, it was a tedious process. It wasn't till after I finished painting this wall plaque that I decided I wanted to go in a different direction. So I ordered a clock kit. I use a couple of blocks to help me keep the drill bit vertical to the surface. Then I drill a hole for the shaft on the clock mechanism. The clock mechanism sits proud to the back surface of the clock. So I build a box out of some scraps. This will hold the clock away from the wall, and the top piece has a slight bevel, so I'll use that to hang the clock. After the glue dries, I'll add a few screws for strength, and then I'll burn the edges to kind of blend things in. I use the tape from the placement of the first chain link as a template for the rest of the links. That way they'll all be spaced evenly away from the edge. I mix up some epoxy and I glue the links in place. I finish this up with a couple of coats of clear coat, You could use polyurethane or lacquer on this as well. Just something to protect it. And the last thing that needs to be done is installing the clock mechanism.